Hi, welcome. I'm Bhakdar. I'm teaching a class today called Offensive Defense. The principles of this class are to go over the theory and practice of pivoting your body in order to block and return strikes, controlling range through your footwork, and being considerate of angles of attack, whether someone is advancing on you to close range or you're closing range on them as you're guarding, blocking, or defending what they're doing. And then finally also baiting, or intentionally setting up an opening that you want your opponent to swing for so you can respond effectively to it, or so you can preemptively know what may be most open on them or an easy counter strike on them. So this is the main stuff we're going to go over today. Throughout this, there's going to be a lot of things that are easier to make sense of in just what your guard is doing, or just what your torso is doing, or just what your feet are doing. And hopefully by the end, we're putting all of those layers together so that your hands are guard positioning, your torso, and your feet, your footwork are all synchronizing together. So we're going to start off with body pivot. So if Zale and I both start with a sword foot forward stance, this is pretty common guard, sword shield versus sword shield. The body pivot concept I'm going to start with has to do with pivoting your body at the spine, okay? By thinking about how when we pivot our body, it's adjusting our guard that we started with in some naturally advantageous ways. So let's put this together. Let's say Zale opens with a cross because I've just got my guard up. If he reaches deep enough or snaps it low enough, he's got a threat on my elbow, forearm zone, or maybe even my hip if he's really reaching for it. Okay, so the deeper he lunges in for that cross or leans in for that cross, the pivot of my body is going to naturally put my hand further in front of his strike, like so. If I pivot my body, my upper torso, away from the angle of his attack, let's slow-mo that again, I'm naturally putting my hand where? Right in front of where his sword's going. Yes? Does this make sense? And I'm not having to pull my hand around. Go ahead. I pivoted my torso, and my hand went from natural guard here to natural guard, making a full edge of block or defense along that side of my torso quadrant, right? So let's do that one more time, slow-mo. Now this is like coiling a spring, okay? What am I primed to do from this position? Retaliate with what?
Snap back with your
yeah, uncoiling the spring, okay? And that can go a number of different ways. He's not gonna sit there and stay forever. Let's stay slow-mo for sake of demo. But he throws the cross, I pull back, I can return on his arm, I can return all the way back on his forearm, I can come, he's going to be recoiling that way, putting what closer to me? Outside. So in full motion it might look something like this. Go. Where did his shoulder that wasn't guard before end up? Like almost under my hand, where I wanted it for the wrap. People feel me on that? So again, he lunges forward, I pivot, he's going back, and I return over. I couldn't have simply started here, or he's gonna shrug a little bit and have a full block. You guys feel me on that?
Yeah.
So the coiling of the spring almost charges me up for a faster, stronger snap return. Cool? So that would be blocking a shot to my inside, returning to his outside. You don't even have to necessarily be comfortable wrapping, turning your wrist. You get one more time, more full motion. And the angle of your weapon dropping down, and your arm extending out, your sword tip extending behind their guard can do the same function. Does that make sense? Okay. Let's look at that opposite angle for a minute. You won't see my block as much, you will see what Zale puts open. I can come here, he's going back there anyway. I don't think I want to do that. I'd rather do that. It can also be to the hip. swap again. Again, if he goes really low and dips into it, his shield is down here. It depends on how they're coming back from their shot. But he goes to actually, so like 60% speed, go. Okay. Let's switch it up to blocking something that comes outside. So, again, I'm the defender, Zale, let's swap. Zale is wanting to swing at my shoulder or hip. He wants to go outside. He may even be stepping there, so make sure he's gonna get there. Okay. He steps and has a good wrap. He's going to hit me behind my ribs. What do I need to do to block? Rotate. Yeah. For sake of demo here. Yeah, go ahead. Rotate. Again, hips and torso rotate, and my defense is even more deeply in front of where he wants to land his swing. So with the board, it looks like here. What's that turning my body for? Not just defense, but what potential offense or return is that pivot setting me up for? Pivoting here. Yeah. So this all becomes one fluid synchronized motion. Let's go back to about 60% speed, throw the wrap. A little slower again. People feel that? So ideally, I'm synchronizing my pivot, having my shield deeper from getting hit under the ribs or the hip, and my sword snaps down there. What's a decent swordboarder gonna do if they know I like to counter swing? They know I like to use that. There we go. He's gonna slide the shield with it to cover in that motion. It shuts this off. I'm pretty boxed up from going anywhere on his inside unless I really reach over. And even there, it takes much less motion for him to, still shove me out. Fair enough? So, how can I vary that to still retain some advantage? He knows I'm a counter swinger. He's gonna cover. Let's see that out. Oh crap, we've done this a few times in the sequence of sparring or some battlefield action. Happens again. Okay. What might I do to mix this up? And I still want to use my pivot to my advantage.
His left hip.
There we go. I could instead use that pivot to block his wrap and throw a counter wrap. Let's do that. I'm guessing he's gonna stop leading his shield to cover his arm. If that happens, there we go. We can mix it up. Now you can start getting into a game of feints and outselling your opponent on what they think they need to do, and that being incorrect. So he throws the wrap, and I actually feint over here, so he puts the guard there, and then go for the wrap, for instance. Let's swap sides. Zale throws the wrap and covers his arm. He really thought I was going to snipe his arm. It did not happen. He had to still commit there, because if I actually chose to follow through, I would have snapped his arm. You feel me? So instead, that pivot, you don't have to stay in the pivot. And that's what we're going to get to when we add torso plus footwork, right? Because that time, for instance, I threw the pivot for the feint, and then I needed to change direction and really solidify that I'm going to get that next outside. Feel me? Okay. And final, it's totally cool to return that low wrap with a high wrap too. If his body and general guard motion is going across, this is pretty juicy and easy. I don't even need to wrap it. And perhaps the fastest way to respond with the feint would almost be a tick-tock on a pretty standard round. What I mean by tick-tock is I only flinch high over here and he's forced to cover his shoulder. And then it actually comes on this outside shoulder. Body pivot sold that I was gonna go there though. Cool? So that's the core of the body pivot. We talked about pivoting at the torso, how pivoting at the torso can simultaneously block and snap a counter strike on your opponent, and then we talked about adding a feint to it so it doesn't get too mundane or anticipated by your opponent.